2025 came and went, but not without all the great movies that came with it. Today, I will be ranking every 2025 movie that I've seen this year from worst to best. I know that people are going to be asking for my ranking of 2025 games and shows, but the problem is that I finished not very many of them at all to warrant a whole video. So before we start ranking, I want to tell you about my favorite game and show of the year. My game of the year 2025 is Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. I know it's a remaster of a 2015 game, I don't care, it's peak Xenoblade gameplay. As for my favorite show, it would have to be Severance Season 2. I like how it wrapped up the show, though I don't know if it's as good as Season 1. Now back to the movies. I apologize if I didn't include that many movies on here, because there were some personal time constraints, so I couldn't include some of the big Oscar nominees like Begonia, F1, and Marty Supreme. And please note that this video is just my personal ranking, and don't take my feelings to heart. It's totally fine if you like any of the movies that are rated low. So with all that out of the way, here is every 2025 movie I watched ranked. Number 16. Happy Gilmore 2. Yeah, this is a really disappointing sequel. I love the original Happy Gilmore as it was just such a funny movie, and it's personally my favorite comedic Adam Sandler movie. The sequel, on the other hand, just really doesn't live up to it. The jokes just weren't that funny at all, especially compared to the first, which had many scenes that had me bursting out in laughter. Something else that I really didn't like about this one is that I just don't like the premise at all. I hate how it regressed Happy's entire character and discarded all the development from the first movie. The plot just felt nonsensical as well. I'm not saying the original was very realistic, because it's basically about how a guy somehow managed to become a professional golf player in a matter of days. The sequel's plot was just bonkers and barely made sense. Now, the thing that I despise the most about this movie is the cameos. Almost every side character that has at least one line is a celebrity, and they get old incredibly fast. These cameos add nothing to the movie. Pretty much none of them are funny or memorable in any way, and they just exist for the audience to point at the screen like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme and to pad out the runtime, which is somehow almost 2 hours long. Compare any of the cameos to Bob Barker's appearance in the original, which was infinitely times more memorable and funny than any of the cameos in 2. Even some of the returning characters just felt unnecessary. For example, I loved Ben Stiller's character in the original. I liked how funny yet comically evil he was. While I still liked him in the sequel, his inclusion was just so forced and such a departure from who he was in the original that still failed to work. In conclusion, this just feels more like a crappy direct-to-Netflix Adam Sandler movie than a successor to one of my favorite comedies. Number 15. Five Nights at Freddy's 2. So I'm gonna be real with you all. I really didn't like the first FNAF movie. Barely anything happened until the last 20 minutes. The tone was all over the place, and there were tons of plot holes. This is probably a good reason to skip the sequel, but I saw it anyway because I thought it would be fun to see it in theaters this time. Plus, I kinda like FNAF 2 more than FNAF 1, of what I played of it. And just like the games, I easily preferred this one. I like that a lot more stuff actually happens in this one. Something I was disappointed about in the first movie was that there were almost no jump scares from the animatronics, and no real scenes to attempt to adapt the gameplay into the movie. Lo and behold, they actually happened in this one. I was actually pleasantly surprised with this movie, until the ending of course. I cannot stress enough how much I hate this movie's ending. It introduces a stupid villain who nobody who hasn't played the game will understand, and he barely does anything in it as well. There's also one of the most out-of-character moments I've ever seen at the end that just drives me insane. The rest of the movie also has problems as well, like the marionette is a really bad villain with motivations that are all over the place, and the plot holes from the first are back. However, I did like the more action compared to the first film, and I love Newman in this as well. However, it has too many flaws that greatly bog down what would otherwise be a fun movie. Number 14. Edgar Wright's The Running Man. This movie is about a man who joins a deadly game show that has him hunted across the country to help his sick daughter. Despite this movie's interesting and entertaining sounding concept, I was pretty disappointed. I kinda wanted to watch this movie because of Edgar Wright's other works. I love Shaun of the Dead, and Hot Fuzz is unironically a masterpiece. I thought his directing style would work very well for this kind of movie, but his style was nowhere to be found. No energetic camera movements or anything that reminded me of his style was here. Any somewhat competent director could have made this. What the heck happened to him? Anyways, as someone who hasn't read the Stephen King book or watched the Schwarzenegger movie, the first 2/3 were decent. Even though Edgar Wright was half-butting it, it was still entertaining with a few good action scenes. I thought this was going good. Then the last third happened, which was pretty bad. Once he got into the car, all the fast pacing was gone, and it became a slog. There was a plot twist more predictable than the Arkham Knight's identity, and an ending that should have been ambiguous and should have ended like 10 minutes sooner. I actually googled the book ending, and I prefer that one any day of the week. Anyways, this movie could have been good, but wasn't, and I would honestly rather rewatch FNAF 2 than this one. Let's just move on. Number 13. Osgood Perkins' The Monkey. For our second Stephen King movie in a row, this is about two twins who discover a toy monkey that can cause death to a random person. There is a good horror drama in this about trauma, and also a dumb fun horror comedy with some crazy kills. However, both of these movies are squished together into what we got, and they don't really mix well. I honestly just don't think I have very many strong feelings about this one. While there isn't a lot of great stuff here, there isn't a lot of bad stuff either, so most of it is kind of forgettable. I do think that there are a few good tense scenes here and there, but the goofiness kind of ruins it sometimes. It may be that I watched Toy Story 3 one too many times, but the monkey was actually pretty scary. However, the last third of the movie is pretty stupid with a pretty bad twist villain. There is another movie coming up with a similar concept, but executes it way better. In conclusion, this was a movie I watched this year. Number 12. Wes Anderson's The Phoenician Scheme. As you could expect from the director, this movie is visually incredible and with its dynamic yet cozy style. I love how these visuals and the writing made this into such a quirky movie, just like what Anderson is known for. However, this film still kinda disappointed me. Before seeing this movie, I saw Wes Anderson's The Grand Budapest Hotel to prepare myself for his style, and it was a masterpiece with its visuals and writing. While it did get me used to his style, it kinda spoiled me with how good Anderson can be, especially since many consider Budapest Hotel to be his peak. This may have increased my expectations a bit too much. While it excelled with its visuals and humor, there was still so much that the film lacked. The storytelling was just not very good. You know how people always say that movies should show instead of tell? Well, this movie tells you pretty much everything that is going on. It kind of made it a slog to follow along, especially since every character talks extremely fast. The plot isn't even that complex and it's very linear and formulaic, so following along feels way more difficult than it should be. Also, there just isn't a lot of heart in it compared to Budapest Hotel. I know you aren't really supposed to root for the main character since it's pretty obvious he's a bad guy for most of it, but I didn't really care for his daughter either. And while I really like Michael Cera in this, he just isn't even that interesting either. In conclusion, I wish this were as well written as it was directed. I hope Wes Anderson improves with his next movie. Number 11. A Minecraft Movie. Is this movie objectively awful with lazy and cringeworthy writing, terrible visuals, and a bland story? Yes. Was this incredibly fun to watch in theaters? Absolutely. I feel like I appreciate this movie way more as an experience than as a movie. Going to the theaters on opening weekend was an unforgettable experience that was just loads of fun. It was just an event that couldn't be replicated. However, if you look at this movie through a critical lens, it is really bad. I wish that this movie were animated because the live action humans do not match how Minecraft is supposed to look. The world has the most uncanny style that does not know whether it wants to be realistic or faithful to the game. Also, if you remove the ironic humor, most of the intended jokes are actually pretty awful. There is a character named General Chungus who unironically says, "unalive," in a movie released in 2025. Yeah, this movie was in production hell for a decade, how can you tell? As somebody who has been a long-time fan of Minecraft and waited almost a decade for the movie, my younger self would probably be very disappointed. especially if the TikTok memes didn't exist. I know that people keep saying that this movie's flaws don't matter because it's made for kids, but that's a really bad excuse in my opinion. There are lots of movies primarily targeted for kids that are way better and well written, which can be enjoyed by anyone. This movie has no excuse. Kids deserve better movies to grow up with. In conclusion, thank God this movie was a massive meme, because this would have been an absolute disaster if it wasn't. Number 10. Fantastic Four: First Steps. I know I talked about how I stopped watching the MCU a while back in a previous video. However, I saw the good reviews, and I heard that you don't have to watch the other recent movies to understand this one. So when the movie was available to borrow at my local library, I figured, why not? The thing that I liked the most was this movie's visuals. The retro-futuristic setting felt very unique compared to the rest of the MCU, and it gave it a lot of charm. The style of the world looked great, and the CGI is outstanding, especially whenever Galactus is on screen. I also thought the action was very fun, which I missed from my MCU hiatus. The acting for all the characters was great all around, and they had a lot of chemistry together, except for Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards, who I felt was very miscast. However, I wish that these characters were a lot more fleshed out. We didn't get a lot of scenes that show these characters develop and show why they make the decisions they make. It just makes them feel flat writing-wise. I also think that the Silver Surfer should have gotten more scenes and backstory. We don't really know much about her as a character at all, and it makes something she did at the end feel very unearned. If there were another 15 minutes at least, I feel they could have fleshed them out a bit and made them more interesting. While I wish this movie was better written, the movie was visually fantastic. Number 9. Bong Joon-ho's Mickey 17. So I kinda wanted to watch this not only because of its concept and sci-fi-ness, but also because of how similar it looked to Xenoblade. I'm not even kidding when I say that, it's literally a mix between X and 3. If you didn't know, the movie is about a worker on a space exploration mission who does dangerous tasks, but he gets revived each time he dies, until he meets one of his past selves. Before watching this, I made sure to see the director's previous film, Parasite. While I don't think it was really the greatest movie ever made, like everyone says it is, I still thought it was pretty incredible. I kinda regret seeing that before Mickey 17, cause there's definitely a bit of a noticeable quality drop. I'll start with what I liked about it. While the first 45 minutes are basically just exposition, I surprisingly liked it a lot. It really fleshed out the whole system of how everything works, and all the characters. It almost felt like I was watching a documentary of a fictional world, and I really liked that about it. After that, however, you can definitely see where the quality dropped. As I said before, I like the concept of the two Robert Pattinsons. I really want to see where the plot would go with them. The issue is that not really a lot of interesting things happen afterward. As a matter of fact, the clone plotline becomes a B-plot in favor of focusing on some aliens nobody cares about. Also, hot take, I don't like some of the central performances in this. Pattinson and Mark Ruffalo do really annoying voices the whole movie, and Ruffalo in particular just sounds bored in the last third of the movie. In conclusion, this movie starts strong but gets increasingly worse as it goes on. It has good ideas, but fails to use them to their full potential. I think it evens out to being just good, not great. I feel like this could have been one of my favorites of the year, but the thought of its wasted potential just makes me sad. Number 8. Looney Tunes: The Day the Earth Blew Up. This is a movie that was just thrown on one day when I was being lazy, so I did not really think about this movie in terms of this list, as it's pretty different compared to these other movies. But when I said that I would rank every 2025 movie I've seen, I meant all of them, so this one would be counted as well. I really did not expect very much from a feature-length movie about Daffy Duck and Porky Pig that sounds like a direct-to-DVD movie from 20 years ago, but this was actually a really fun movie. There were just so many clever jokes that felt way too good to be in this movie. However, there were some dumb things with the plot I didn't like the villain being very forgettable and Porky's romantic subplot that wasn't that good. This movie is pretty much what you expect from a feature-length Porky and Daffy movie, though surprisingly a lot more fun. Number 7. The Naked Gun. As a big fan of the original Naked Gun movies, I can officially say that this is a worthy successor. If you didn't know, the Naked Gun movies are cop movie parodies with hilariously goofy gags. In a world filled with bad legacy comedy sequels, this movie being good is a miracle from Jesus Christ himself. So many of these jokes could have been in the originals, and they would have fit right in. They feel like they match the absurdism of the OGs while also having a hint of Seth MacFarlaneism. Liam Neeson is also perfectly cast as a successor to Leslie Nielsen, as he can also deliver goofy scenes in the most serious and deadpan way. While it isn't as funny as the first movie or even the second one, it's still amazing that we were able to get such a faithful revival. It feels like this movie was really written by the fans. If you hadn't seen these movies, please do. They're a riot. Number 6. Final Destination Bloodlines. Before making this video, I went on a marathon of watching every Final Destination film to prepare for this one. It really was quite the journey of watching movies of very mixed quality that were constantly triggering my anxiety. After watching every movie, Bloodlines made for such a good end of the marathon. If you didn't know about the movie or the series as a whole, they're about a person who saves a bunch of people from a catastrophic event, only for the survivors to be picked off one by one in freak accidents. While I wouldn't say Bloodlines is the scariest one, it really feels like the culmination of the series. The movie constantly plays with the tropes that the previous films established, keeps subverting your expectations, keeps creating more and more surprises. Something I really liked about this entry is that the main characters are one big family, so each death feels a lot more personal and effective than the other films, where the main characters have been friends, co-workers, or even complete strangers. Finally, it has the perfect send-off scene for Tony Todd. R.I.P. For this entry only really references the second movie, I recommend watching every Final Destination movie before this one because of how much the movie builds off of your expectations from seeing the previous movies. While I consider this to be the culmination of the series, I still really want another sequel with brand new and creative kills. I still have yet to see one of these movies in the theater to experience how they are truly meant to be seen. In conclusion, for a 6th entry in a horror franchise after a 14-year hiatus, this was a masterpiece. Number 5. James Gunn's Superman. After over a decade of suffering through the DCEU, we finally got a great Superman movie. What I love about this movie is that it isn't afraid to be goofy. One of the biggest flaws of Snyder's Superman was that he was so edgy to the point that kind of contradicted his symbolism of hope. This Superman, on the other hand, really embraces the hope and positivity the character is supposed to have. We really need more movies that are this positive. The whole movie is just fun, comic book action, and I love it. Although the movie is more lighthearted and goofy, it still knows when to take itself seriously, lets you care about the characters and what's going on. The movie also has a really good twist on the Superman story that still fits the movie's themes and examines Superman as a character. In addition to being a great movie on its own, the movie does a great job introducing the new DCU characters. I really like the Justice Gang members, and I can't wait to see more of them. Nicholas Hoult was also great as Lex Luthor, and did a good job playing a massive hater. In conclusion, this movie sets such a high standard for the DCU, and I can't wait to see more of it. Number 4. Wake Up Dead Man, a Knives Out mystery. As a big fan of Rian Johnson's other Knives Out movies, I am happy to say that this movie is on par with the last ones. I don't want to talk about the plot much because these movies are best experienced without knowing anything beforehand, but there is still some stuff I want to talk about. I really like the complexity of the crime and how many layers there are, like the first movie, which makes them feel like puzzles within puzzles. I love how subversive they are to the murder mystery genre. The layers make it seem like there's always more to solve and analyze. Something I feel that this one had that the other two mysteries didn't was a lot more heart. Instead of being like the first two movies, which are mainly about finding justice for the victim, this one focuses more on forgiveness, something I wish more movies had. The movie asks questions about faith and what following really means for how you treat others. While I don't think it's as good as the original Knives Out, I did prefer it over Glass Onion, though I think they are, at worst, great movies. In conclusion, Wake Up Dead Man is a worthy entry in the franchise. I hope we get more sometime in the future. Number 3. Ryan Coogler's Sinners. How can I mention 2025 films without mentioning Sinners? If you didn't know, the movie is about two twins who return to their town to start a new club business, only to be accompanied by vampires. Something I really like about this movie is that it isn't afraid to take its time with the beginning. While many horror movies try to get to the scares fast, this movie's start introduces the town and its citizens, lets you care about them, so when they die, you actually give a crap. While the film has a calm start, it does not hold back with its horror. The actions and special effects are crazy good and give the film so much style with every drop of blood and chunk of gore. It's not just the horror scenes that are well directed though. There's one musical scene that is just so magical that may actually be one of the, if not the best scene of the year. Speaking of music, the songs in this movie are phenomenal and Ludwig Göransson's score is probably the best of the year. The movie also gives a great message about the power of community and culture. As a Gen Z white guy, I don't think that I directly relate to it, but of what I heard, I think Coogler is able to do a great job showing it. I never would have thought that Coogler would have a movie like this in him, and I'm astonished by how well he is able to direct this. While there are two movies that I prefer more, Sinners is probably the best movie of the year objectively. Also, I'm gonna say it, I'm fine with it getting 16 Oscar nominations. I believe you can make a case for pretty much all of them. While there's a Best Picture nominee that I ranked higher, this one probably has a way better chance of winning, so I'm rooting for Sinners. The one battle after another will probably win anyways. It's such an incredible movie, and we still have 2 movies left. Number 2, Zach Cregger's Weapons. This is the movie about the citizens of a town after a class goes missing, as we see the aftermath of it through the perspectives of a handful of the citizens. This movie probably has the best screenplay of the year. The movie flies by with phenomenal pacing, thanks to its well-organized chapters, each focusing on a different character. The different perspective storytelling lets you see various events through different characters' eyes and their side of the story. Some scenes are even different from one perspective to another. These decisions really show how disconnected the town's citizens have been since the disappearances. The movie also has a bunch of scenes that are pretty funny, so it does work as a sort of dark comedy. A flaw that the movie has is that the movie does slow down its pacing in the last third of the movie. However, that part is carried by Amy Madigan's role as Aunt Gladys, which is the best performance of the year as a scary and disgusting villain, and I hope she snags the Oscar for it. The performances are also really good all around. I really like the message and the symbolism in the movie aren't very clear, and a lot of it is up to your own interpretation, which allows for lots of discussion. Since this movie came out, I really expected this to be my number 1 of the year. However, there's one movie that I watched very recently that completely changed that. Number 1. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. After seeing and loving Del Toro's take on Pinocchio a few years back, I was excited to see how he would make another reimagining of a classic story. I had high expectations, but holy crap, this was great. As somebody whose only Frankenstein-related media I have watched was the first 20 minutes of Young Frankenstein, I was absolutely amazed by this. Del Toro's direction makes this movie look absolutely beautiful, with colorful shots and gothic sets that look amazing. It's not just the visuals that are amazing though. As somebody who didn't know much about the story of Frankenstein before this movie, I was amazed by how great a character study it was. The contrast between Frankenstein and his creature was really interesting, with how they thematically mirrored each other and how they viewed the world. From Frankenstein's nihilistic and egoistic view that life should be conquered, to his creature's hopeful and optimistic view that values life for what it is. It was also interesting how the movie was able to say something about parenting as well. It's kind of sad that Frankenstein continued the cycle of neglect that he got from his own father, but the hope that his creature had really couldn't make their outcomes more different. Oscar Isaac and Jacob Elordi also gave great performances that really elevated their characters. In conclusion, this was a new take on a classic story executed phenomenally. All of those reasons are why Frankenstein is my favorite film of 2025. So those were all the movies I watched this year. This was a fantastic year for horror in particular, and the fact there are 2 whole horror Best Picture nominees really shows it. It was also a great year for Warner Bros. As well. I guess it's one last hurrah before Netflix destroys the company. While 2025 came to an end, it looks like 2026 is going to be an even crazier year, so it looks like there's going to be a lot more to look forward to. So what was your favorite movie of 2025? Feel free to post it in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.